Significant development from the House Judiciary Committee today, taking a big step forward toward opening up an impeachment inquiry.
You're saying there's no difference between what you're doing now and an impeachment inquiry, correct?
In effect, we are going to see what remedies we could recommend, including the possibility of article of impeachment.
The chairman now openly threatening impeachment proceedings.
The House must have access to all the relevant facts and consider whether to exercise its full Article 1 powers.
Spelling it out for the first time today in their court suit to get the grand jury material from Robert Mueller's report, while also readying a second court case to compel former White House counsel Don McGahn to comply with his subpoena.
This court filing is the first time that you're seeing us telegraph to the court that one of the remedies we have is impeachment.
I would say we are in an impeachment investigation.
This comes as now 100 Democrats support opening up an impeachment inquiry. And as some are growing impatient with Speaker Pelosi's approach, worried the window for starting impeachment proceedings may be closing.
No, I'm not trying to run out of the clock. We will proceed when we have what we need to proceed, not one day sooner.
But pressure is coming behind closed doors from even her top deputies, like Chairman Nadler, who has pleaded with Pelosi privately to allow him to lean into impeachment.
We may decide to recommend articles of impeachment at some point. We may not. That remains to be seen. And there's no point speculating on whether the Speaker or anybody else will agree with our decision at that point.
Meantime, Pelosi today also trying to minimize another rift with a fellow Democrat.
I don't think there ever was any hatchet.
Meeting one-on-one with progressive freshman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for the first time in months.
I've always felt, again, it's like you're in a family. In a family, you have your differences, but you're still family.
After the two have been openly feuding in public.
Looking forward to us continuing our work. As always, I think the Speaker respects the fact that we're coming together as a party.
My name is Doug Lindsay. I got sick at 21, and I spent the next 11 years homebound and bedbound until I developed the surgery that fixed me.
I came down with what the doctors told me was mono. But after months of rest, I got worse, not better. Then my health deteriorated even further. I had to drop out of school, and I became homebound. I was a grown man laying on the floor of my house, and I was unable to function. I figured if it was something common, the doctors would have found it. So I figured I was looking for something rare. And about a year into my illness, I came up with something. I theorized that there was likely an entire class of autonomic nervous system disorders. The center of my adrenal gland was what was making me sick. And if we could remove that hyperactive tissue, my life should get better. And it took me 4 years. It took me 2.5 years to prove that this surgery was possible, and another 18 months to build the team to do it. 3 weeks after the surgery, I could sit for 3 hours straight, not just a few minutes. And I started being able to stand longer and walk further. And so I walked further every day. When I got the surgery in September, I'd only been able to walk 50 feet. By Christmas, I could walk a couple of miles.
A fairly major string of incidents happening in the airspace above the Asia-Pacific region as the Republic of South Korea says it had to scramble jets when a Russian military plane entered its airspace. Now, the South Koreans say that their jets were forced to fire warning shots on several occasions at the Russian plane. They say in total, 360 rounds were discharged by their plane to try and get the Russian jet to leave their airspace. Now, the Russians view things a little differently. They do acknowledge that one of their command and control aircraft was in that area. However, they claim that they were flying in international airspace, and they also deny that any warning shots were fired at their aircraft. They say if that had been the case, there would have been a very firm and fast response coming from the Russian Federation. The Russians also accusing the South Koreans of acting unprofessionally. Now, of course, the U.S. has a very different take on this. The Defense Department saying, quote, "The United States strongly supports our Republic of Korea and Japanese allies and their responses to airspace incursions by Chinese and Russian aircraft. The Department of Defense is in close coordination with our Republic of Korea and Japanese allies about these events and will continue to monitor activities as they follow up with their Russian and Chinese counterparts through diplomatic channels." Now, it appears as though this alleged incursion was part of a larger maneuver taking place with the Russians and the Chinese. The South Koreans are saying that Russian and Chinese bombers also flew into their air defense identification zone. They say they also scrambled jets because of that. The Russians are saying that, yes, their planes were in that vicinity. They say they were flying in international airspace, conducting maneuvers with the Chinese, and they also say that there were encounters with foreign aircraft, namely with the Japanese and, of course, with the South Koreans as well. This is a show of a tightening military alliance between the Russians and the Chinese. The Russians are saying this was the first time that there were joint patrols in the Asia-Pacific region involving Russian and Chinese aircraft. Fred Pleitkin, CNN, Moscow.